Renee, great to talk to you today.
Thanks so much. Happy to be here, Rhonda, on behalf of Capital Group and myself. We're really excited to talk about some of these benefits and get this underway.
Yeah, let's get right to it. I mean, I cannot believe we're at the end of the year, right? So it's upon us. And for businesses, that means a lot too. It's wrapping up the year. It's thinking about next year. What should these small business owners think about as they perhaps ponder offering a retirement plan for the very first time ever?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start, Rhonda. And it is a busy time of year for business owners. And coincidentally, it is an extraordinarily busy time of year in the retirement plan space. This is the season when small business owners are really thinking about their benefits package, what they're going to be offering, reviewing things like healthcare. What I would say be thinking about is, how do you improve your financial future and the financial future of your employees? We had a previous session. We discussed a lot of different types of qualified retirement plans that are out there that can fit the needs and the budget of just about any kind of employer that's out there. I think the first thing is the individual gut check. Do you need a plan? I would argue that you do. And if so, what kind of plan is right for you? And start the research, start the planning and those conversations.
And Renee, I just want to be clear about one thing. Small business owners should not be really making their decisions based on what's happening with the market or some of these external factors. It's really, like you say, almost a gut check. Like, where are we? What are we going to do right now?
Most definitely. You know, the idea of a small business owner oftentimes is thinking about selling their business, or they're letting different current events cloud kind of the decision or the judgment as to whether or not it makes sense for them to offer a plan. When we think about a retirement plan, for the average American, they're staring down the barrel of a 30-year accumulation time and then about another 30 years in distribution. So looking at where we are today isn't always going to be a great temperature gauge to assess what you and your employees are going to need in the future. So I think right now it's a very simple question, a yes or no. Do you have a retirement plan? If the answer is no, I'd start doing some of that fact finding. I know we'll talk about some tips and tricks today, but I'd start looking at which plan makes sense for you and your employees.
And it makes sense from a business perspective as well. I mean, this can be a competitive tool. We know the job market, it's still pretty tight. It's softening a little bit, but if you're trying to get employees in the door, this is a benefit.
Absolutely. And that can be especially difficult for the small business. They have many more pressures on them, less scale when it comes to running their business and many of their inventory purchases and such. But when it comes to the small business, how they can remain competitive, some of these stats are really fresh. In fact, yesterday, my colleagues and I were on a research finding call with EBRI. So this is the Employee Benefits Research Institute. And they actually updated some findings from 2022. And these were fairly shocking. Small businesses that have between 1 and 99 employees, when we look at a defined benefit plan or a defined contribution, only 58% of these types of businesses are offering a plan. Now, why is that important? If you are potentially trying to attract or retain employees as a small business owner, the allure of a richer, more comprehensive benefit package could easily lure your top talent away. And the delta between those small and mid-sized businesses is pretty significant. A mid-size is going to be 100 to 499 employees. And this same study found that 89% of those mid-sized businesses are offering a qualified plan. So again, that gap between small and medium could certainly make the difference when employees are weighing their overall compensation package and benefits, and these small businesses might miss out on retaining or attracting top talent.
By the way, while we're talking about small businesses, I'm going to go right to the poll because we asked what percentages of businesses in the U.S. are considered small, and 23% said 40%, 98%. We had a 23% response for that. 77%, the response rate was 54-ish, I think I can say. And in terms of 24%, we did not get any votes there. So there's actually, kind of just a division of thought on, are you a small business or are you not?
Yeah, there definitely is. And the way the Department of Labor really classifies a small business is 100 employees or less. And with that will come some specific rules with your retirement plan. But it's okay if I let the cat out of the bag now in terms of how many businesses really fall under this category?
Yes, please.
All right. It's not often I get to help write the test questions or the answers in advance, but it's 98%. Our country is really formed on the backs of these small businesses. And when you think back, if you had a chance to attend our previous session, we talked about 47 million Americans being uncovered. And those are directly correlated to those 98% businesses. And they could range anywhere from a single proprietor, a sole proprietor, all the way up to employees of 100. But nonetheless, there is a need. In fact, one of the stats that we learned yesterday, I have to refresh because it was a pretty staggering number. There's a $3.68 trillion savings gap in this country for individuals that are aged between 35 and 64. Preparing for retirement, how do we make up a $3.68 trillion shortfall? The retirement plan is going to be key.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about some of the nuts and bolts of this for businesses, right? You're at the point, you've made the decision. Last time you were on CNBC, you mentioned regulation. Where are we with that? And beyond regulation, what do small businesses have to think about in terms of tax implications or benefits?
Sure. So with respect to pending legislation, Secure Act 2.0 is looking very promising. It's been through the House. It passed unanimously. And this particular provision is essentially an enrichment to the original Secure Act. It's going to come with a lot of different benefits for the employees and for the employers. So we can touch on some of those tax benefits as well. But things like an auto enrollment incentive, this could be a credit coming back to the employer for automatically enrolling or offering an automatic enrollment to your employees, and the employees have the ability to opt out. It's also going to richen things like a Roth contribution from the employer. Those have historically been pre-tax, raising the RMD age over time to as high as 75 by 2032. And then other provisions I think are really, really important, not necessarily tax benefits, but different avenues for student loan repayment and emergency savings provisions. And we've also learned through Capital Group's research, as well as this EBRI research, that those types of incentives are particularly attractive to Black and Hispanic workers because they're looking for more avenues to save. With respect to tax savings, Secure Act is going to offer different tax credits just for implementing a plan if you don't have one in place. It's also looking at a 5-year tiered tax credit. So if you do have plans, there will be a startup cost to that, documents, the legal paperwork, etc. But the government is trying to incentivize us to start these plans and help defer and offset some of those costs for employers.
Renee, I want to go to the chat because we have Robin who posted a question that basically the businesses in Maryland, and Maryland recently passed a law that small businesses must offer a retirement plan for employees, which probably makes you happy, right? If we're getting more people saving. So basically she's saying, I have a retirement plan. I'm willing to move it, but do you have any guidance as to where I should start looking into making changes into the plan? And this is such a key point because people need to know, how do I go about this? How do I get some help?
Yeah, I love this. There's really two parts to this. So the rise of state-sponsored plans, this is absolutely something we are seeing growing in adoption across the country. Some states have more teeth to their plan, if you will. There are some pretty severe penalties to employers of relatively small size for not offering a qualified plan. So if it's not in a state near you, it could be coming. In terms of if you have a plan in place and you want to make some improvements, there's a lot of different ways to look at this. First and foremost, if you have a plan, I would refer back to your plan's financial professional and ask them to help you in essentially benchmarking your plan. We will sometimes use an analogy similar to your mortgage. If you have a house and you know that the finances and the economy are changing over time, you might want to refinance. Have you refinanced your retirement plan? Have you reviewed the investments that you have? Are they really getting it done for you and your employees? What about the cost structure? Do you understand it? Do you know what you're paying for? And are you getting appropriate value for that cost? Your qualified financial professional should be able to help you in not only benchmarking where your current plan is today, but also comparing other benefits and other providers that might offer either more robust features or a more competitive solution overall. But definitely something you should be doing about every 2 years as a plan sponsor. So timely question, and moving your plan does not have to be difficult. It does take about 60 days to physically move one plan from a provider to another, but usually the record keepers and the providers of those plans are going to be there to usher you all through that process and every step along the way.
It is interesting though, because why do some people find the process daunting? I mean, it is a little intimidating, even as somebody who invests in a company plan, right? You see how many funds there are. It's just a lot to take in, quite frankly.
Yeah, it could. You've hit on what we like to call analysis paralysis. And there is a lot of different thought leadership in the industry, one of which is fund menu consolidation. And as a business owner, when you're looking at the to-do list of things that you're going to have to accomplish in order to move or improve this plan, when you're running a business, you might think, I don't have this kind of time. I'm chief cook and bottle washer. But again, this is where your record keeper, a third-party administrator, and your financial professional will help simplify that process. Looking at the fund menu, more is not more in the defined contribution space. Really simplifying the menu, making sure that the investors have an appropriate financial foundation to build on, mainstay core funds. This is a lot for an individual to do if you're not in this business. So again, leaning into that financial professional. But then also there are words in our industry jargon that might scare participants and plan sponsors. Words like blackout. When you move your plan from one provider to another, they have to reconcile all of that data, and you could be literally blacked out from your plan for up to 30 days. When employers hear this, sometimes they're thinking, oh my goodness, this is really going to create a lot of consternation among my employees. I'd rather leave well enough alone. But when it comes to your retirement, leaving well enough alone isn't going to help you improve your financial future.
Renee, I guess part of the thought process too has to go around in terms of how deep the plan is. We know many employers offer plans. Sometimes there's a match, sometimes there's not, sometimes there are percentage matches. That's difficult for small businesses as well.
Yeah, it can be. And this is where that third-party administrator comes in. Incredibly critical player in your retirement plan. If you think about a retirement plan as a house, if you're going to build a house, you're going to hire a general contractor and they're going to help hire specialists. That third-party administrator is your architect. They're going to handle all of that design. They're going to help you decide how much a match might cost you, because sometimes matches can be elective depending on how the plan was created. But one of the things they're going to want to do with that business owner is really talk about the objectives, measure those objectives, and apply some dollars and cents to it. If you don't do a match, this is how much you can contribute. If you do, this is how much it might cost your business, but there are tax deductions for doing that. They will paint that picture and they will help that business owner decide what formulas and what design make the most sense for them and their employees.
By the way, I just want to point out, thanks to my colleague Wes, who is reminding everyone in the chat, you have a question, post it in there. Feel free. We will happily tackle some of your questions. So don't be shy. Renee is an expert. We're so happy she's here, and take advantage of the opportunity that you have with her. Renee, let's talk about this idea about businesses stepping over dollars to pick up dimes, which I think you're taking us down that road, understanding the expenses, the cost of plans. How do you get in this mindset to think big, rely on your resources, but you don't want to, take an action that doesn't really make that kind of financial sense?
Sure. This, I think, kind of goes with that adage, you have to spend money to make money sometimes. So implementing the plan will obviously come with some initial upfront costs, getting your plan document, maybe initial fees from the record keeper to install your plan. But when thinking about stepping over dollars to pick up dimes, what we often find in the industry, and I have to apologize, I work for an investment manager that is active, and we definitely have a bias towards that. There are great investments that are out there for participants. That is the cornerstone of what will define their success. And when I say stepping over dollars to pick up dimes, what we're seeing in this industry, we've done a disservice by telling plan sponsors your plan costs X. And we're not separating the different components of the plan to help plan sponsors understand, what are you paying for record keeping? What are you paying for this company to pick up the phone, provide statements, education, website support? That in and of itself is a separate cost, separate value. But the investments drive the outcomes. And unfortunately, we have created a narrative in this industry that low cost is supreme. And there are plenty of great investments that are maybe more expensive or rich than an index, but actually can provide a smoother ride and a better return over the long run. So when I say don't step over dollars to pick up dimes, I think what this is really getting at is getting the plan sponsor to work with that financial professional to understand what is the financial professional getting paid, what are the services they're going to provide to help you run this plan more efficiently and to educate your employees. The EBRI data that I've shared earlier also reference that most employees look to their business owner for that guidance. So making sure you've got quality investments, you've got a quality record keeper and a quality administrator will help everybody achieve those outcomes. But again, it's going to make sure you're getting the right value for the cost you and your employees are paying. And don't just look for the cheapest option.
I want to go back to the chat. Thanks again, Robin. This is a great train of thought here. What if your employees choose to opt out of participating in the plan after you set everything up? There are considerable costs involved with administering the plan. Can you make participation mandatory?
Yeah, that's a great question, Robin. When it comes to employee deferrals, no, you cannot force somebody to do it. But as I mentioned with Secure Act 2.0 pending, one of the great incentives that's built into this is an auto enrollment feature. So Robin, your plan or the record keeper may offer that ability to track the eligibility of the employees that work for you and say, okay, Robin, you've worked here for your 1,000 hours. You're going to be eligible to enter this plan on January 1. We're going to automatically enroll you at a savings rate of 6%. The employee has the option to opt out, but maybe you have a match on your plan. Making sure they have the communication and the education to get that free money could be a huge incentive. But the short of it is you can't force anyone to participate, but you can put different methods or features in place that can really encourage that participation. The opt-outs are fairly low. So if you don't have that on your plan, it might be something you want to talk to your plan provider about.
Yeah, it really was a great point. And I wonder, Renee, do you often see small businesses, maybe they kind of reach out to their employees and say, hey, we're thinking of offering a plan. Would you be interested, just to kind of gauge that interest before going down the road?
Yeah, it certainly can be additive. Some smaller businesses tend to be a little bit maternalistic or paternalistic, and they want to gauge that from their employees. But ultimately, this is one where I would say, as the business owner, you have a couple of choices in how you pay for the plan. I would look at this option and say, does this make sense for me and my financial future? Because there's no better time to invest in your own financial future or that of your employees. If the benefit could be enough to allow you to save and make the plan worthwhile, that is worthy in and of itself. But if your employees will even save $25 a month, that's better than nothing, or $25 per paycheck. I would encourage your employees to start small, and 3% of compensation historically has been a great default because it's sort of a wash with the pre-tax salary deferrals. Employees don't miss the money. So there are a lot of different ways that you can try to incentivize the participation of the employees. But if you can benefit from this, I would get the plan in place so you have the benefit, which can also help you attract and retain future talent as well.
Great point. I was going to go back there. I mean, it really is what's right for the business. And sometimes it's just educating the employees on what potentially this means for them. What pitfalls do we need to think about and talk about before we end our time together? I mean, this is something that we want to make sure businesses are thinking through as well.
Most definitely. I think number one pitfall, and we've sort of touched on this, Rhonda, don't try to go it alone. It is complicated. There are a lot of choices out there, and there are thousands of investments to choose from. So number one, make sure that you're talking to your qualified tax accountant to see what benefits might exist for you. Does this make sense? If so, there are tons of different places to go. I'll plug our own website. If you go to americanfunds.com/retire, there's a section there with a great decision tree where you as a business owner can answer simple yes or no questions. Do you want to actually offer a plan that has salary deferrals? Which is more important to you, low cost or higher contributions? And once you go through this decision tree, it'll land at a type of employer plan that might work for you and your business. The other pitfall, I would say, is thinking about timing. This is a busy time of year, and there is a misnomer in our industry that January 1 needs to be the start date for your plan. That is not the case. We can set up a plan anytime. So don't let time or competing interests stop you from looking at this this benefit. That is probably the largest pitfall of all, Rhonda.
What has been the biggest evolution, if you will, in this industry since you've been kind of watching it and following it? Because perhaps maybe you've looked at some doing this 5 years ago, or you thought about it, but things have changed. And we talked a little bit about that, but I'm just curious from the insider perspective, how that evolution has changed now.
Well, the evolution has changed in a number of different ways. I think the types of plans and the plan features have become more complex, which could certainly create more intimidation for a business owner to embark on this alone. But what's really positive, I know in one of our sessions, I was telling you about a really exciting report I read from the Social Security Bureau that was reviewing some 2015 stats around how many businesses have offered plans. And the most exciting evolution is we are seeing more and more small businesses start to offer these plans because the variety of options has made it so much more accessible and attainable. So I think seeing greater participation, we had also mentioned a stat in our last talk about how employees are valuing this much more. That's been a generational shift to some degree. So seeing these plans with things like student loan debt repayment, emergency savings are starting to appeal to demographics that didn't necessarily want to participate in these kind of plans before.
So how would that work? How would that work in terms of the student loan deferrals and things like that?
Yeah, so there are some providers out there that offer different bolt-on type solutions. You can defer from your pay, but you can direct it to your student loan debt relief. Mm-hmm. And one of the things in Secure Act 2.0 is allowing employers the flexibility to direct their match to something like student loan relief instead of the DC or the defined contribution plan. So again, that's pending legislation, but that's part of the evolution where we are seeing our government really try to find ways to incentivize business owners and employees to start participating in these types of plans.
And Renee, I want to start thinking about summarizing. Let's go with some really solid tips. What should everyone attending our session walk away with next steps?
So next steps, don't delay. Right. I've said it before, there's never a better time to start saving. When it comes to this process, no, if you were to make a decision right now today, you're looking at about a 60-day timeline to potentially get a plan set up and in place. So I think the other thing to do is prepare yourself or prepare your employees. If you are committed to offering a benefit, perhaps do as Rhonda suggested. Gauge your employees for participation and what degree of participation are they looking for. Also ask, would you be more inclined to participate if there was some sort of match or profit sharing? But ultimately, I'm going to break it down to 3 really simple things. Talk to an accountant, talk to a financial professional. If you have a financial professional that you currently work with, that's fantastic. Ask them if retirement plans are a meaningful part of their business, because it is a different type of business and it does require a slightly different skill set. And number 3, do the research, do the math, and figure out how you can offer that benefit. It does not have to be cumbersome and it does not have to be overly expensive.
And just to follow up on that, Renee, if somebody has a plan, but maybe they're thinking, I want to change the plan, I'm not really sure, what tips would you give them as they make that decision?
Mm-hmm. Review the plan first. Have somebody benchmark it. Strip out all of those different providers. Understand what you're paying for each provider. And most importantly, be able to articulate what it is you're looking to improve on the plan. Is it the investments? Is it employee education? Helping your team really understand this benefit and how to participate? Those are going to be very, very important to the success and the adoption of a plan. So I think there's a lot of different ways that you could go with this, but the first one is get in touch with the right financial professionals to help you. They will Sherpa you through this process.
Yeah, I would say maybe a tag onto that is don't try this alone, right? There's a lot there, but I can't imagine that a small business owner would want to take this all on by himself or herself. Those professionals really, this is the time you could actually use them in a way that benefits you.
It most definitely is. And if you do offer a plan, thank you. That's excellent. If you are looking to improve your plan, so many different options. Just be prepared to tell your financial professionals what it is that you're still looking to accomplish, and they'll be able to help you find the right solution.
Well, Renee, this is all the time we have. I want to go back to Robin real quick, who says happy holidays. I will wish that to you and everyone in the chat. Thanks for this great information, Renee. Thanks to Capital Group as well.